At 6 a.m. on the 25th of March, 2015, the body of a woman was discovered near a landfill in southern Saskatoon. Her skin was cold, and visible wounds could be seen on her neck. Blood had soaked through the hood of her black leather jacket. She wore no shoes, and her watch was shattered. A blue belt lay nearby. There was no identification, only a lion tattoo that revealed her identity: Brittney Gargol, who had recently been reported missing. It wasn't until 2 years later that a chilling clue finally exposed the horrifying truth behind the case. "18-year-old Brittney Gargol had spent her entire life in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. She came from a large family, and after her parents separated when she was young, that family grew even more. Brittney had 4 younger sisters who adored her, especially after she reconnected with her biological father. Their bond was strong, and they were making up for lost time. Brittney was known for being bold and outspoken. She loved the outdoors. Snowboarding, camping, and boating were among her favorite things. Her sense of humor and lively personality meant she was never alone for long. She had just returned to school and was working 2 jobs to save money. Her plan was clear: finish school, attend college for business, and build a career in hospitality. No one could have imagined that her hopes for a bright future would be so suddenly and brutally extinguished. After receiving news of Brittney's death, authorities quickly began piecing together the final moments of her life, hoping to uncover the missing pieces of the truth. They confirmed that she had gone out that night, which narrowed down her time of death significantly. One of the first people to speak with investigators was Natasha, a close friend who'd known Brittney for years. Natasha had been the one to push Brittney back into school after she had dropped out. On the 24th of March, she had lent her some money for gas and asked what her evening plans were. Brittney said she was meeting friends and maybe heading to a party. Natasha hugged her goodbye, saying, "All right, girl, I'll see you soon," but that was the last she ever saw of her. After hearing the news, Natasha struggled to make sense of it, hoping that Brittney hadn't suffered and was now in a better place. The pain of losing her friend was matched only by the fear it sparked. The atmosphere in the city had shifted. Once familiar streets now seemed unpredictable. Natasha couldn't shake the sense that things had become increasingly unsafe. Brittney's death had left a deep mark, not just on those who loved her, but as a painful reminder of how quickly everyday situations can turn tragic. For Natasha, the loss became a powerful warning, proof that no one is immune to danger. In memory of Brittney, she hoped others would stay vigilant, value their safety, and never let their guard down. Cheyenne had been one of Brittney Gargol's closest friends for many years. Their bond was forged through shared experiences and deep emotional support, especially after Brittney learned about Cheyenne's difficult past. Cheyenne had grown up facing a turbulent childhood and adolescence, and Brittney stepped in as a reliable presence. Their friendship developed into something nearly unbreakable, and they spent the majority of their time together. Going out for drinks was a familiar habit for the two. On the night of the 24th of March, just after midnight, Brittney uploaded a selfie of them together before leaving the house. Cheyenne later told investigators that they drove to several locations in Brittney's car that night. Their first stop was Manchester's Brew Pub, followed by a house party. After that, they headed across town to the Colonial Pub and Grill. The house party, according to Cheyenne, had a heavy atmosphere, and she recalled feeling uneasy afterward. Details became increasingly vague as the night progressed, and she admitted that her memory of later events was blurry. While at the Colonial Pub, Brittney began chatting with an unknown man at the bar. From Cheyenne's perspective, the two appeared to be hitting it off. Brittney had asked the man for a lighter and welcomed him to join them for drinks. Then, without any further explanation, Brittney left the bar with him. She didn't mention where they were going or whether they would be returning. Cheyenne never caught the man's name, couldn't identify the direction they went, and didn't know if they left on foot or in Brittney's vehicle. All she remembered was that he was white, and the time was close to 4 a.m. Another odd detail was that Brittney had ended up with Cheyenne's phone, something unplanned and confusing. Left alone and increasingly concerned, Cheyenne made her way to visit her uncle, who later verified her arrival at his home alone. She was unable to provide any additional information that might help the investigation. The gaps in her memory and lack of identifying details made it difficult to offer clarity. As morning arrived and Brittney was still nowhere to be found, Cheyenne's anxiety grew. A few hours later, she posted a public message online expressing concern and hoping for news. Her words reflected confusion and fear. She wondered whether Brittney had made it home safely and held on to hope despite the unsettling silence that followed. But as time went on, hope began to fade. Officers were now urgently trying to track down the unidentified man Brittney had reportedly left with, but they had little concrete evidence. Although it's not clear where her car was discovered when it was found, it bore several troubling signs, coated in layers of dust, dirt smudges streaking the sides, and tufts of long grass stuck in the tires. Inside the vehicle, Cheyenne's phone was recovered, suggesting Brittney had taken it when she left the pub, perhaps using the car to drive off with the man instead of walking. Detectives reviewed surveillance footage from the Colonial Pub and Grill, hoping to spot the two women, but neither Brittney nor Cheyenne appeared anywhere on the tapes. Bar staff also had no recollection of seeing them that night. Still, investigators acknowledged it had been a busy evening, and Cheyenne's timeline could easily have been muddled by alcohol. With Cheyenne's phone now in hand, investigators turned to its GPS and data history, hoping it could provide clearer insight into Brittney's final movements, especially since Cheyenne's memory was unreliable. The phone pinged at a McDonald's location around 4:30 a.m., a place Cheyenne had failed to mention. That raised even more questions. Had Brittney stopped there after leaving the pub? And if so, with whom? Ultimately, Brittney's autopsy report confirmed investigators' suspicions. She had suffered blunt force trauma to the neck. Based on the bruising and positioning, authorities now believe the belt found near her remains was the murder weapon. They returned to Cheyenne's version of events, combing through her statements, and something didn't sit right. Her story was shaky, potentially due to intoxication, but the insistence on having gone to the Colonial Pub when all evidence said otherwise stood out. By September 2015, 6 months had passed, yet investigators were no closer to solving the case. Brittney's loved ones were still in disbelief, mourning her in tributes both public and personal. Among the most vocal was Cheyenne, whose emotional posts kept Brittney's name in the public eye, even as questions continued to swirl. Investigators decided to revisit Cheyenne's uncle, hoping he might provide further insight. Initially more guarded than before, he eventually opened up under pressure. This time, his story took a significant turn. He revealed that Cheyenne had told him she and Brittney met two men at the bar that morning and later accompanied them to a motel. Unlike her earlier claim about Brittney leaving with a white man, she now said the two individuals were black males. However, she couldn't provide their names, descriptions, or even recall the motel's location. According to her uncle, Cheyenne recounted that while at the motel, the group had been using stimulants. At one point, an argument reportedly broke out over the drugs. Cheyenne said she stepped into the bathroom, and when she returned, she found Brittney lying motionless on the bed with injuries to her neck. She claimed that two men pointed a weapon at her and forced her to cover up what had happened. Despite the lack of credibility in her story, one thing was now clear. Cheyenne was admitting that she had known Brittney was dead before the police were ever notified. This was a major shift. She had not only placed herself at the scene, but also mentioned the neck injuries, details not released publicly at the time. Cheyenne had a long criminal history, accumulating over 50 convictions since the age of 12. At this point, she was already in custody for an unrelated offense, making it easier for investigators to bring her in for questioning. However, the once cooperative and emotional friend was now silent and distant. She refused to provide any more information, and investigators had no choice but to walk away. By then, more than a year had passed since Brittney's murder, and the case was reaching a dead end. Most security footage had long been erased, and witnesses had nothing new to offer. Brittney's loved ones continued to grieve, remembering her as someone full of life and compassion. She had dreams of finishing school, launching a business, and creating a bright future. Though her life was cut short, those who knew her still felt her presence, holding on to the hope that she was at peace and watching over them. Despite all efforts, investigators still had only one person of interest, Cheyenne. They meticulously combed through the social media activity of both Brittney and Cheyenne, hoping to find something overlooked, a clue buried in the comments, a message missed in earlier reviews. That's when they stumbled upon something critical. In a tribute post Cheyenne had shared, a photo caught their eye. The top half of her outfit was visible, and so was a belt she was wearing. It was a belt that looked alarmingly familiar. The belt matched the one found near Brittney's body, which authorities had already suspected was the murder weapon. The pattern of the weave on the belt was identical to the marks around Brittney's neck. Additionally, damage found on Brittney's car aligned with impact points consistent with that same belt. With this new discovery, investigators sent the belt for a more thorough DNA analysis. The results were damning. Both Brittney's and Cheyenne's DNA were found on it. It was a breakthrough they could hardly believe. Had the photograph been taken from a different angle or cropped differently, they might never have made the connection. However, the case remained difficult to prosecute. There was still no confirmed motive, and Cheyenne continued to withhold information, refusing to speak. Months turned into years. Almost 2 years had passed since Brittney's death, when a new tip finally breathed life into the investigation. A friend of Cheyenne's came forward and went directly to Brittney's parents with a chilling revelation. She explained that on the morning of the murder, sometime after 5 a.m., Cheyenne had shown up at her house. She was drunk, crying uncontrollably, and in the middle of what the friend described as a booze-fueled breakdown. Cheyenne admitted to having a heated argument with Brittney, reportedly over a mobile phone. Through tears and visibly trembling, she said that she had struck Brittney and caused her to suffocate using a belt. As if to confirm the horror, Cheyenne pointed outside. The friend looked and saw Brittney's car parked outside. Inside, Brittney's body was slumped against the window, bleeding and motionless. Cheyenne didn't offer further details, nothing about how the fight started or what exactly pushed her over the edge. Crucially, she didn't mention any motel or other people. The story she had originally told to police and family unraveled completely. Shocked and terrified, the friend told Cheyenne to leave. Without saying a word, Cheyenne got back in Brittney's car and drove away, still intoxicated and now carrying a deadly secret. The following morning, Cheyenne pretended that she couldn't recall anything from the night before. She claimed to have no memory of what had happened, no fight, no confession, nothing. Her friend, shaken by the previous night's revelation, was too frightened to approach the authorities. But as weeks turned into months and guilt settled in, she decided the truth needed to be told. She reached out to Brittney's family and shared what Cheyenne had admitted that dreadful morning. It wasn't the only lie Cheyenne had told. Her own uncle later admitted that Cheyenne had pressured him into backing up her fabricated version of events. He had supplied her with false alibis, covering for her at her request. Investigators learned that Cheyenne had twisted the truth at every turn, constructing stories about strangers, manipulating relatives, posting misleading messages on Facebook, and doing everything she could to avoid taking responsibility. Authorities were blunt. If she had truly felt remorse for what she'd done, she could have rushed Brittney to a hospital. Instead, she abandoned her to die alone in a car. In March 2017, Cheyenne Antoine was officially charged with second-degree murder and committing an indignity to a human body. What began as a night of drinking and friendship had ended with Brittney Gargol's lifeless body dumped on a rural roadside outside Saskatoon. In the beginning, police didn't even know who the victim was. But ironically, a seemingly innocent selfie posted online, the last known photo of the two together, played a crucial role in solving the case. As Cheyenne appeared in court, she wore a baggy hooded sweatshirt, often using the sleeves to hide her face. Now 20 years old, she faced the devastating reality of the crime she had committed. Inside the courtroom, family members of Brittney wept as the charges were read. Despite the pain, They expressed deep gratitude to investigators who had worked tirelessly for 2 years without giving up. Brittney's stepmother recalled how difficult it was to explain everything to the younger children, especially Brittney's 7-year-old sister, who still didn't understand why her sibling never came home. Brittney was a joyful soul who adored her family, especially her 4 younger sisters. She cherished her friendships and was known for spreading happiness wherever she went. Her life had been stolen, and it was a wound that justice alone could not heal. Shockingly, nearly 6 months after the murder, Cheyenne left a comment on a tribute post. She described having dreamt of Brittney, waking up in tears, and wrote that she felt blessed to have known her. She ended the message with, "Rest in paradise, my angel." The hypocrisy of her words stung those who knew what really happened. Alongside the murder charge, Cheyenne faced accusations of degrading Brittney's body. She had also racked up multiple other charges, including recent convictions for assault and making threats in a separate case. As the case moved forward, Brittney's family continued to remember her as a bright, joyful 12th grade student with a deep love for her 4 younger sisters. The contrast between the vibrant life she led and the grim courtroom proceedings was stark. When Cheyenne's court appearance ended, she pulled up her hood and walked silently out of the prisoner's box. She remained in custody, with another court hearing scheduled for that Friday. Despite the mounting evidence, Cheyenne repeated the same story she had told her friend on the morning of the murder. She described an evening of heavy drinking and marijuana use. According to her, everything after the house party became a blur. She claimed to vaguely recall an argument that started between them at a McDonald's. The fight allegedly escalated after Brittney grabbed her phone, and Cheyenne said she just snapped. Her memory, she insisted, had gone blank. And the next thing she remembered was seeing Brittney unconscious on the ground. Now 21 years old, Cheyenne finally faced Brittney's family in court for the first time. She avoided eye contact, keeping her head buried in her hands as she sobbed. Under Canadian law, second-degree murder is a non-premeditated but intentional killing, with a minimum sentence of life imprisonment and no parole eligibility for at least 10 years. In contrast, manslaughter, unintentional killing where harm was intended but not death, carries no mandatory minimum sentence. Knowing the weight of a second-degree murder charge, Cheyenne's defense team sought a plea deal. She pled guilty to the lesser charge of manslaughter, effectively avoiding a full trial. Through her attorney, she accepted responsibility for Brittney's death but maintained that she had no memory of the incident. Her statement to the court was filled with remorse. She said she would never be able to forgive herself and acknowledged that no apology could ever bring Brittney back. Her legal team urged the court to show leniency during sentencing, citing her emotional turmoil and lack of recollection. Cheyenne Antoine's legal team urged the court to consider the weight of trauma she had endured since early childhood. Her relationship with her parents was virtually non-existent, both having struggled with addiction rooted in the generational scars left by Canada's residential school system. By the age of 12, Cheyenne had already begun racking up criminal charges, eventually accumulating 54 convictions before she turned 20. Her upbringing had been marked by abuse, neglect, and instability. After leaving her parents, she was placed in foster care, where she became a victim of both physical and sexual abuse. Her defense further revealed that just a month before Brittney's death, Cheyenne had suffered another sexual assault. The aftermath pushed her deeper into substance abuse. These experiences, her lawyer claimed, created a volatile emotional state, with unaddressed trauma and self-destructive coping mechanisms combining into a dangerous spiral. Despite all of this, people close to her emphasized one constant in Cheyenne's life: Brittney. Brittney had been her emotional anchor, someone who listened without judgment, who helped her navigate her emotions, and who showed up when no one else did. She had supported Cheyenne through some of her darkest moments. Brittney was not just a friend, she had become the most reliable presence in Cheyenne's chaotic world. That, observers noted, made the tragedy even harder to understand. Her lawyer called the killing a catastrophic outcome of untreated trauma colliding with substance abuse. No one could explain what truly happened that night, not even Cheyenne herself. There were theories, but no clarity. While she did mention a fight over a cell phone, there was no deeper insight into how a trusted friendship had ended in such horror. Whether Cheyenne genuinely didn't remember or chose to withhold the truth remained unknown. According to her lawyer, she was deeply remorseful and fully aware that nothing could ever undo the pain she had caused, nor bring Brittney back. At Saskatoon Provincial Court, the sentencing of Cheyenne Rose Antoine brought a long-awaited conclusion to a case that had puzzled investigators and devastated a community. Cheyenne pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the death of her close friend, 8-year-old Brittney Gargol. The court heard that Brittney's body had been discovered near Cedar Villa Estates, just south of Saskatoon, back in March 2015. After nearly 2 years of questions and confusion, today the facts were finally laid out. Originally charged with second-degree murder, Cheyenne accepted a plea deal for the lesser offense of manslaughter. The agreed-upon sentence, submitted jointly by the Crown and the defense, was 7 years in prison. The judge approved the recommendation, making the term official. During the proceedings, details of the night in question emerged. Cheyenne admitted that both she and Brittney had been heavily intoxicated after leaving a house party. Her last clear memory, she claimed, was Brittney taking her phone. What followed was a blackout. She said she could not recall what happened next, only that when she sobered up, Brittney was dead. In the days after Brittney's body was discovered, Cheyenne had attempted to deflect suspicion. She told investigators she had been out with Brittney but left before anything happened. She even took to social media, posting concerned messages to make it appear that she was searching for her missing friend. The motive behind the killing remains elusive. Her defense attorney stated plainly that this is one of those tragic cases where the truth of what happened may never be fully understood. Still, Cheyenne acknowledged responsibility for the loss of life. Though memory fails her, she accepted that her actions or lack of control led to Brittney's death. At the age of 21, Cheyenne Antoine was sentenced to 7 years in prison, with a projected release date in either 2024 or 2025. The judge encouraged her to seek help for her struggles with addiction and anger, urging her to honor Brittney's memory by turning her life around and becoming a better person. Yet, despite the sentencing, the full truth of what happened that night remains elusive. One person claims to remember nothing, and the other can no longer speak for herself. For Brittney Gargol's family, the pain is not faded. She was a vibrant, ambitious young woman with a promising future ahead of her. They now face the reality that closure may never fully come. Her aunt described the grief as something deeply dark and consuming. Brittney's stepmother revealed that her younger sister, just 5 years old at the time of the murder, fears that forgetting her sister for even a moment means losing her completely. Brittney's father continues to wrestle with guilt and heartbreak. He recalled how he had planned to help his daughter fix her car the day before she died but was unable to make it in time. That missed opportunity to see her one last time haunts him. He thinks of her every single day, overwhelmed by the sense that her life was cut short without reason and that his was forever altered because of it. Brittney Gargol lost her life at just 18, not at the hands of a stranger, but her closest friend. A toxic friendship buried under pain, lies, and red flags left ignored. This heartbreaking case reminds us that violence can wear a familiar face. If something feels wrong, speak up, because sometimes there's no second chance. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and explore more true stories that matter right here on our channel.